You know what I want to do, guys? We're usually this is a teaser. Usually now the gulag segment is firmly in the post game, but I think this fits so well. I want to do those two different sounds with Corey before we go to the post game. We'll do we don't have to play the whole music, but this is going to be the gulag segment because this fits perfectly. Those two pieces of sound. So, Corey, are you familiar with Anand Giardardis?
No, fill me in.
So he wrote, I forget the name of his book.
Winners Take All.
Winners Take All. So he's basically a guy that, like, you know how occasionally like the Aspen Institute and other places, they kind of like to, they obviously are always sort of trying to brand themselves in terms of do-gooderism, but they also occasionally like to have somebody like a guy like Umair Haque, who I'm not actually, I haven't read him in quite a while, but he used to blog for the Harvard Business Review and whatever. And again, I wouldn't say it wasn't necessarily like socialist politics, but he would write some very scathing things about Wall Street that one would be like, oh, I wouldn't expect to see that polemic in the Harvard Business Review, right?
Yes, so, I'm Googling this author, and I think I read an excerpt when it came out.
Yeah, so what's fascinating, though, is that Anand is taking this to a whole other level. So he's like getting all of these platforms, whether they be at Davos or on these television networks, and he's actually saying, like, guys, like, he called Davos a reunion of world ruiners, to paraphrase it, saying philanthropy will make no difference. A couple of weeks ago, he was talking about, he was at a summit, some ideas summit in Chicago, and basically helpfully reminded the moderator of the panel that the seminar that they were doing was being sponsored by a company that was still underwriting the Saudi Investment Forum. This was like at the height of the, focus on the Khashoggi murder by the Saudis.
He's got the Mark Blythe hustle going.
Yeah.
Where you get paid to tell rich people that they're a bunch of jerks.
Yes. And he's fucking nailing it. But I actually we're going to see how long, because he just humiliated a Bloomberg panel or CNBC panel. He's really going for it. And these two clips he just tweeted out earlier today. I'll tell you the tweet. But first, this is him pissing Tony Blair off. And then there's him pissing Bill Gates off. Now, the Blair clip includes a clip of Anand himself. The Gates clip is just a question being relayed from him to Bill Gates. But we're going to watch both of these clips back to back, and then I think we'll probably all sentence together Davos to the gulag. But let's start with Christian Amanpour relaying to Tony Blair Anand's critique.
Let me just play you this little soundbite from a guy who's kind of gone viral right now, Anand Giardardis, who's just written this book, Winner Takes All, the charade of the global elites. Look what he just told me.
I think Davos should end. I think it should be canceled this year and should end going forward. It is a family reunion for the people who, in my view, broke the modern world.
I mean, you can't argue with that, right?
I can. Look. It's the easiest line in the world to make, by the way. I tell you what I do when I come to Davos. So later today, I'll be meeting 3 of my presidents from Africa. I don't think they broke the economic system. I'll be meeting a whole lot of people from multilateral institutions who work in the developing world. I'm here because my institute, which is a not-for-profit institute, works in some of the poorest parts of the world trying to help them. And, to be fair, the people who come here, they're discussing serious issues. So it's the easiest play in the world. Say, all these people are coming along here, the global elite and so on. And by the way, these arguments about cultural identity and nationalism, in my experience, you've got elites on either side of the argument. So, Davos, it is what it is. It's an opportunity for people to come and network on issues of importance. And, some people, may come here who are billionaires from different parts of the world, but other people come because some of the issues that they're discussing here are important.
All of that money that Tony Blair has made lobbying for oil companies and dictators has definitely degraded his speech skills. He used to be a lot more silver-tongued, but I just like a few things there. Let me just take an easy pot shot and say that yes, it is easy to say that the elites that gather in Davos have wreck the world, because they have. From climate to the global economic meltdown to the rise of fascism in the world today. I also thought it was funny that he immediately pivoted to his consulting work in Africa with his quote unquote My African Presidents. That's Tony Blair failing. Now here's Bill Gates getting the Anand hit himself.
Here's a somewhat more critical question from Anand who's written a book called Winner Take All. What do you think of the rising chorus of philanthropy's critics get right? There's people who feel, and Anand argues that for many philanthropy is a way of not really changing the fundamental system, but a way of making us kind of feel better and perpetuating inequalities.
Well, if people think, communism works better or something, I don't know. To me, the system can constantly be tuned, and I'm a believer in an estate tax. I'm a believer in more progressive taxation. I think we have a system that works, but we can
Look at his knee bouncing.
to achieve more equality. Things like the earned income tax credit should be made substantially more generous. The people who suggest there's an alternate system, I'll just respectfully disagree with them, that some radically different system would both create good things and give us the wealth that we should spread in a more equal way.
Wow. So I love that clip because that's evidence again that billions of dollars and a brilliant talent for computing does not a deep political thinker make. In the ongoing failure in our popular discourse that confuses, as an example, setting up a computer business with an ability to solve political problems. Corey, your thoughts. And I just want to say really quickly, we don't have it in front of us, but I can summarize. Anand tweeted out today that he got DM'd by a friend, like, you pissed off Tony Blair and Bill Gates in one day. Who's next? Bono? And Anand said, funny you should say that, because an interview about my opinions on Bono's philanthropy is going to be dropping tomorrow. So it's like, all right, like, Godspeed, Anand. Corey?
I'll keep an eye open for that. I will say, I'll take these in order, I guess. Tony Blair was smiling way too much for a British person.
Yep.
And he had definitely been hitting the spiced wine up there on the slopes. I think that's the only explanation for his babbling. As for Bill Gates, I spent a couple of the most miserable professional months of my life working for a company that was 100% owned by Bill Gates. And what I learned from that experience is he has no idea what's going on. He's not even good at business. That's the problem with a monopolist, right? You don't even have to do what you are claiming to do in order to make money. And his ignorance and arrogance are stupefying. I mean, by modern tech guy standards, I guess he seems like kind of restrained, but he is a greedy motherfucker who has really a much more impoverished sense of what the world is like, despite the fact that he, reads every book in Oprah's book club.
Well, I don't know. I thought communism didn't work. So I don't know. Like, these are the fucking intellects that are held up in the society. It's like a sophomore year shit.
But that's the thing with Bill Gates, though. It's not accidental that he rattles off all the things that he supports, and it's not accidental that he puts so much money into media companies to give him glowing coverage. Right. It is a facade. They understand what they're doing, I think. More than like they seem like they're babbling idiots when they're put on the spot because they don't have a prepared response to that because they've been putting down.
It was never supposed to get to this
and
point.
There's nobody in the room who will call bullshit.
Yeah,
there's
that's right.
Nobody in the room that's going to say, "What are you talking about?" Actually, or like, "What have you read on the subject of communism, Bill Gates?" I mean, that would be a great follow-up question.
Or like that, yeah. Like, what have you read on? Right? Have you read any books? Or like Yasha Monk didn't say to Tony Blair, like, when Tony Blair was like, and by the way, there are elites that don't like black people. And there are elites that listen to Putumayo records like myself. So, suck my dick, Anand.
It is what it is.
It is what it is. That was my favorite part, actually. That was the part where I related to Tony Blair. That he speaks to my inner. Tony Blair is definitely my evil animal spirit, no doubt. And I totally relate to like being on a fucking ski slope in Davos, being like, dude, I'm making like fucking $50,000 a month, like calling a Chinese premier for a Saudi oil guy. It's 10 minutes of work. I've got like a fucking nice blue shirt on. Like, it is what it is, Christian. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, fuck you. It's like, all right, fucking Indian Andrew Dice Clay. Oh, yeah, real clever point. Well, you know what? Davos is fucking complicated, man. And I've got African people that I'm working with, and that just doesn't sound good. Is what it is.
It's funny, too, because he's kind of calling BS on her. I mean, I met Christiane Amanpour once, and the only thing I remember from the whole interaction is her saying, it's a sentence fragment, and it was delivered with a flourish and sort of a wave of her hand, was like, when I was in Africa. I mean, it was like...
Are you serious?
Yeah.
She was actually that much of like...
Yes.
Because if you were scripting it and you wrote and you were like, and then Christiane Amanpour turned and said with a flourish, when I was in Africa, it would be like, all right, we need a rewrite on that. That's too...
I think that drove me back to the bar.
Yeah. Like,
that's my memory. It probably wasn't quite so smooth. But, that's what they do at Davos, too, is... try to impress each other with how like well informed they are. And whenever a video comes out of what they're actually talking about, it's just like, oh my God. It's like it is like, and the juxtaposition with Bill Gates too is great, because it's like the guy invented and it's his fault. The PowerPoint is everywhere, right? And like
yes.
Like these people are responsible for the slideshow in the office meeting that never ends. I mean, it's their world that we're just sort of struggling through, and their idea of what passes for intellectualism is just embarrassing whenever it's put on display. Except the only people who are allowed to witness it firsthand are there on the condition that they never talk about how stupid it all is.
Right.
And how out of touch.
And these, by the way, both of these guys, Blair and Gates, are big fans of Steve Pinker's book, which, again, should be another tell you everything you need to know moment. Corey Pein, remind everybody all the ways that people can follow your excellent work.
Well, I'm at Corey Pein on Twitter. I have a podcast on Patreon, patreon.com/newsfromnowhere. And I have a book that should be out in a new, more portable and somewhat cheaper format soon, in the near to medium future, called Live, Work, 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 Die, A Journey to the Savage Heart of Silicon Valley.
I think communism didn't work. So, but I mean, I guess other people have other ideas, but that's just me.
Yeah, there's more Bill Gates stories in there.
Oh, beautiful. Corey, thanks a million.
Thanks.
You just enjoyed that Michael Brooks Show video, and you can get a lot more by subscribing to us here at the Michael Brooks Show YouTube channel. It's literally right there.